With those 4 remarks on this very important piece of legislation, I commend it to the House.
I call Grant Robertson.
Thank you very much, Mr Speaker. Now, I'm a little bit disappointed after that contribution from Chris Bishop, because colleagues on this side of the House will know that when the National Party was rejigging its cabinet, I was in Team Bishop. I was saying Chris Bishop deserves to be in cabinet, well ahead of David Bennett, I was there backing Chris Bishop, and then he gets up tonight and does a speech like that. And I've got to say, David Bennett would have probably been able to do that better, and that must be a crushing blow to hear that, those words said. In fact, I never thought I'd say those words in this House. But, Mr Speaker, I do want to respond to one of Mr Bishop's points, which was his short constitutional law lecture that he delivered us on behalf of Geoffrey Palmer, when he was wondering why the Labor Party and Michael Wood had expressed concern about the conveyor belt of tax legislation that we have been witnessing in the House in the last couple of years. I just want to make the point to Mr Bishop that this bill is in fact the bill where we had the moment of confusion, when submitters were coming into the committee not sure which of the 2 tax bills that were in front of the committee they were there to submit on. That's the situation we found ourselves in the committee, Mr Speaker, and that's why Michael Wood has raised this issue, and the Labor Party will continue to raise the issue, that we believe there can be a much more streamlined approach to the way that taxation amendment bills come up. We have had the example in the last bill, which I know you'll allow me to speak about just briefly, Mr Speaker, where the bill itself was amending a piece of legislation we'd only passed a few months earlier in the House. That isn't a good way to make tax law, and it's not the fault of the officials necessarily. They have a work program that the Minister approves, that they work to, that comes forward. It is, however, the responsibility of those who manage the House to make sure that this comes up in a way that is sensible and allows members of the public to make the kinds of submissions that we want them to do so. Mr Speaker, I'm going to speak. I imagine I'll get interrupted in the middle of the speech, so I want to save some of the really exciting stuff around closely held companies and aircraft overhaul expenses, which I know is one of Mr Bailey's life passions that he will no doubt speak about when he gets up. But I want to cover a couple of matters this evening if I can. And one I do want to get out is my support also for the Minister's SOP around the depreciation rollover for businesses affected by the quakes, and as Mr Bishop said, to avoid them with having any unnecessary tax obligations. This is important. A number of businesses and business owners have been affected in this way, both in Kaikoura and here in Wellington. But I also want to throw my support behind Ron Mark's SOP that actually takes the Minister's SOP a step forward and says, let's actually do something now to enable those people who know they need to strengthen their buildings, who want to strengthen their buildings but are finding it financially difficult to do so. Now, Mr Marks proposed tax deductibility measures, and that will work for some people. But personally, Mr Speaker, I would go further and say we actually also need to look at how we help those people who are owners of residential buildings or apartments in residential buildings who have been affected in the same way, either through the tax system or through some kind of low or no interest loan facility. Because right across New Zealand, but especially in places like Wellington, we have people who live in buildings who aren't rich or wealthy. They happen to own an apartment or a flat in a building that is earthquake prone. They want to do the strengthening. Their body corporates can't borrow money as a group. They themselves are struggling. We need to do the right thing by those people. They're not asking for a handout. They're just asking for some assistance to get the work done and get it done now. And I implore the government to take on the very good things that they've done here in terms of businesses affected by the quake and Mr Mark's SOP, and let's have a package that gets that earthquake strengthening work done as soon as possible. Mr Speaker, the other matter I want to just cover tonight is the question of rates. And again, to help Mr Bishop out a little here, this is the time when we set the annual rates. It's a bit late in the day it would be fair to say, for the 2016-17 year. You know, taxpayers right across New Zealand have actually been paying their tax, presumably, hopefully, hoping the government would actually pass the rates, but they've left it pretty late, and they've left it very late to the point that we might have some other announcements that might change the tax rates coming our way. And I'd challenge the government speakers opposite to be upfront with us. If David Bennett was here, he might know already what those tax rates are. But I want to know from the government what is actually going to happen in terms of tax rates. These will be one of the shortest term sets of tax rates ever passed in this House, Mr Speaker, I venture to suggest, because when it comes budget time, we know the government's not going to be able to resist the old tax cut dance in election year. Throw something out there, despite the fact they've created a massive deficit in infrastructure and social spending. Throw out the tax cuts. Make sure that the public think that there's a chance here that they'll get something from them. I endorse what my colleague Michael Wood has said. What the tax system needs in New Zealand is a thorough, far-reaching review. We have reached the point now, Mr Speaker, where we have huge inequalities in our country, particularly in terms of wealth, the owners of assets. That's where inequality is now residing. And in our tax system, we need to take another look at that to make sure that we actually achieve the Minister's goal of fairness that she said was the bedrock of the tax system. Right now, today, as we
Sorry to interrupt the honourable member. The time has come for me to leave the chair. Members, this debate is interrupted and set down for resumption next sitting day, and the House stands adjourned until 2 p.m. tomorrow. Good evening.